This, of course, is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Evan Jansen. The show is very much live. It's broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. We are also streaming live on YouTube, of course, live that is right now, with the whole show is always available on demand for your leisure on our YouTube channel. Now, today we have South Africa's Jewish Board of Deputies in studio to tackle boycott, divestment, sanctions South Africa on their move to bring Leila Khaled to South Africa next month. Then we get an update from Davos in Switzerland, where world leaders are meeting to look at the planet's economic outlook and options. And we close today with an update from the Eastern Cape, where agriculture got a massive boost and kids in Kunu will benefit from the computers used during Madiba's funeral. Also, we've got a developing story about looting riots in Soweto. Katrine will give us an update shortly, and we'll try and be live there a little bit later in our show. Katrine.
Well, hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Katrine Malana, and let's just take a look at those top stories this morning. The number of people arrested in connection with widespread looting in Soweto has risen to 68. This follows the looting of spaza shops belonging to foreign nationals. Parts of Soweto have been up in arms since the shooting of a teenager at Snake Park on Monday. 4 foreign nationals will appear in the Protea Magistrates Court this morning on gun charges. They were arrested after shooting at people who were looting their spaza shops in Snake Park. President Jacob Zuma has urged business delegates to partner with government to help restore investor confidence in South Africa's economy. While addressing South African delegates attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Zuma told delegates the country remains stable and a key investment hub despite the faltering economy and energy shortage. About 40 heads of state and government and over 1,000 business leaders have converged in Davos to tackle some of the pressing social economic issues.
We are here in Davos to invite more development partners to join us in moving South Africa forward towards prosperity and a better life for all. And we offer many opportunities in return.
Still in Davos, and religious leaders attending the World Economic Forum have condemned terror attacks masqueraded as religious obligation. And Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town, Thabo Makgoba, joined the choir of condemnation, saying religion should never be used as vehicles of hate. This comes in wake of the latest Boko Haram attacks in Nigeria and the Charlie Hebdo attack in France. Back in South Africa, the shutdown of services in Malamulele, Limpopo is raging on, and it seems without any response from the authorities. Residents have escalated their protests to demand their own municipality separate from the Thulamela municipality. Businesses, government offices and schools have been affected. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga has condemned the disruption of schooling in the area, saying no matter what happens, children should be allowed to go to school. Then in news from the rest of the continent, as voting in Zambia's presidential by-elections continues, concerns are now that administrative delays could disrupt plans to have all the results by today and ahead of tomorrow's scheduled inauguration. Voting in Zambia's presidential by-election continues into its third day today after bad weather prevented the timely delivery of voting materials. The country's electoral commission says about half a dozen polling stations in remote areas opened this morning in what is expected to be the last day of polling. The commission has suspended the announcement of results until all voting ends. And the West Indies tour of South Africa hit a new low yesterday when they were bundled out for 122 in under 34 overs to lose the third one-day international by 9 wickets at Buffalo Park. The Proteas chased down their modest target with 25.2 overs to spare for the loss of only left-handed opener Riley Rousseau, as Hashim Amla finished unbeaten with 61 and Faf du Plessis not out 51. South Africa hold an unassailable 3-0 lead ahead of matches in Port Elizabeth on Sunday and Pretoria next Wednesday. Well, remember, all those top stories and more are all available on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can then also follow us on Twitter. Keep up to date with all of our journalists out and about all over the country on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Well, Eben, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Katrine. We will keep you updated on that developing story in Soweto, of course. Widespread looting's taking place. It's very tense there. Hopefully a little bit later in the show we'll be able to give you a complete update. But, of course, matters at hand. Earlier this week, we were joined by the South African Jewish Board of Deputies who believe that the boycott, disinvestment and sanctions movement is sending the worst possible message to South Africans by bringing notorious freedom fighter Leila Khalid to the country as its guests next month. Now, today, we invited the National Director of the Jewish Board of Deputies, Wendy Khan, back to the show, and we're also joined by BDS Coordinator Mohammed Desai. Good morning, guys.
Hi, Evan.
We're going to keep it cordial today, guys.
I left the boxing gloves at home.
Okay, that's great, because, you know, this is let's have this discussion and let's keep our responses to around a minute, if we can, per issue. I want to start with you, Mohammed. The criticisms that you've received, just give us your view as to the decision to bring Leila Khalid to South Africa.
Okay, well, two things just to start off. The first is happy birthday to you, Evan.
Oh, thank you very much, Mohammed. Yes, it is my birthday. At my age, you don't really talk much about it.
Sorry about that. But the second thing is that before I say anything about BDS South Africa's intention, as an organization, we really would like to reach out to the various organizations such as the South African Students' Congress, the YCL, the ANC Youth League, the ANC, COSATU, as well as various other unions, including various deputy ministers, and ANC and government officials that have all come out supporting Leila Khalid's upcoming visit. The head of ANC's International Relations, Deputy Minister Obed Bapela, will be sharing a stage with Leila Khalid when she's in this country, and the outpouring of support from the masses of our people is very humbling for somebody like Leila Khalid. So that's an acknowledgement to the people out there that have supported the bringing down of Leila Khalid. But this is not the first time that Leila Khalid is coming to South Africa. She's been here in the past. She's been here in 2006 for a wonderful documentary that the Encounters Film Festival had hosted. But she was also hosted at various rallies and by various government officials and anti-apartheid icons. This time around, Ahmed Katrada, for example, has asked for a private meeting at Lily's Farm, one of the anti-apartheid sites, to have a meeting with Leila Khalid to consult on various issues. And so there's a deep history between the South African struggle and the Palestinian struggle, and also between the leaders of the Palestinian movement and the South African movement. And this is a connection that is going to be coming out through Leila Khalid's visit to this country.
Now, Wendy, we heard your views a little bit earlier this week. I just want you to take a look at some of the pictures of the previous visit. It was an official welcoming. And then if you can give a response to what Mohammed has said, and also you can talk over the pictures while our director, Johan, plays it. But your response to these pictures, which was the official welcome the last time around, and then, of course, the comments made by Mohammed just now.
Yeah, I think in this country we welcome so many different people, and I think we do know that she was here before. We're in a situation at the moment globally that our global democracy is actually being threatened by terrorism. We have seen the most heinous acts over the last few weeks. We have seen situations of 2,000 people a couple of weeks ago in Nigeria being butchered and murdered through acts of terrorism. Individuals, civilians being targeted for no other reason but to instill fear in people around the world. We have seen the Paris massacres where people merely for their views or merely because they were Jewish were butchered and murdered. And this is a time when the world is sitting up and saying we need to take a very, very powerful stance against terrorism. We need to, as a global community, stand up and take a stance. And for our country to be welcoming, and certainly for BDS to be welcoming this woman who exemplifies terrorism. And let's be honest, and I did mention it before, it's not just the hijacking of the aeroplanes where she had grenades on her and put the fear of whatever into the passengers who were there, but they're the recent incidents that have happened in 2011 where the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine went into a home and butchered a family of 5, mother, father, 3 children, decapitating a baby. These are the values that we want to bring to South Africa. These are the kind of messages that BDS wants to put out. This is the kind of value system that we want to instill.
Mohammed, your response to that?
Well, it's a bit like saying that cable theft today is similar to the sabotage attacks of the MK or of the ANC during the 1980s. One can't really compare cable theft today to a liberation struggle that was sabotaging an apartheid regime. Likewise, the Palestinian resistance to Israeli apartheid and Israeli oppression cannot, should not, and is being deceptively compared to terrorism, which we all condemn. We condemn fully as BDS South Africa the attacks in Paris, the horrendous crimes being committed by Boko Haram in Nigeria, and the various other terrorist activities throughout the world. So we're in agreement, actually, with the Jewish Board of Deputies. I think where we may find disagreement is that whereas the majority of the world, with our world leaders such as Archbishop Desmond Tutu or Jimmy Carter, the former president of the USA, all calling Israel's form of occupation illegal and a crime against humanity, the Jewish Board of Deputies is refusing to take the right side of history, refusing to join the world's population in condemning the kind of crimes being committed against the defenseless people of Palestine. We would like to see the Jewish Board of Deputies condemning the attacks on Paris, and in the same breath condemning the attacks on Gaza last year, which resulted in the killing of over 2,000 Palestinian civilians, of which 500 being children under the age of 16 years old. These are horrendous crimes which we think the board should join us in condemning.
I think we need to draw a distinction between war situations and civilian targets. I think in a war situation, you have civilians that are casualties of war. It is tragic. And I think,
isn't this a global war?
Am I not allowed to finish
No, don't take it personally. I'm just asking
I just want to
isn't
finish.
This a global war?
It is a global war against terrorism. And I think that we need to draw the distinction between war situations where there are civilian casualties and situations where civilians are deliberately targeted, such as and I think we need to, Mohammed just made the point that yes, this was a long time ago that she was involved in the ANC, long time ago. So no, 2 months ago, this organization went into a synagogue and they took axes and they murdered 4 rabbis who were praying. They were simply, may I finish? I allowed you to finish. They went in there. She has made it very clear, Leila Khaled, that she said, it was in May last year, she said very clearly, she said there are different types of resistance. I am choosing resistance around violence. She made it very clear. Her organization, over many decades, they've been into a school in Israel a few decades ago. They butchered 28 students in that school.
I think
that's the kind of person you're bringing to South Africa. Those are the kind of messages.
Let's move the discussion on. Let's not talk about we killed so many and you killed so many. Let's talk about the situation of...
That's what she's coming here to do.
Let's talk about the war that you're talking about. You're talking about a war situation.
Yes, right? Yes.
Explain to me, how do you perceive this war, and how do you then perceive war crimes committed during this war?
Absolutely. When war happens, there is suffering on both sides, and certainly in Protective Edge, we saw the most horrific suffering on both sides. And I think what needs to happen now is there needs to be an independent body that comes in, that looks at what happened. There's so much speculation. I think you raised a couple of ideas the last time we met. There's been so many people coming with their views on we need facts. We need investigators to go in, and that's what the United Nations is doing at present. But until we have that, and yes, we did condemn. We condemned the war.
Can we give Mohammed a chance to have a go?
Look, Auntie Wendy, let me. Sorry, it's an affectionate way that people speak in our culture. But look, Ms. Khan, I'm glad, firstly, that you raised the issue of the synagogue last year. From the Israeli police investigation reported in the New York Times, the chief Israeli police investigator concluded that the attacks weren't carried out by any political party or due to any political instruction, but in the words of the Israeli police investigator, it was carried out by a lone attacker. Now, let us see what Israel did after that lone attacker was killed. Israel then demolished the house of the family, the widow, of this lone attacker, in the words of the police investigator. It destroyed the entire house of the family and then carried out mass repression activities in September 2014 by revoking residency permits to Palestinians living in Jerusalem, and also by revoking the ability of Palestinians to renovate their houses and to further constructions onto their houses. And in a really sick action, Israel refused to allow the bodies of those two people, those two lone attackers, in the words of the Israeli police investigator, to be returned to their families. Now, we know the returning of bodies to our people, the burying of our people is such an important part of our culture. This is the kind of collective punishment that is being practiced by Israel. But I agree with you, Anwar Ibn. We need to move beyond this. So Israel attacked Gaza. These were many people were killed. The Palestinians attacked the Israelis, etc. We need to go to the root cause of this problem. The great Brazilian philosopher, who you may not have read, Paulo Freire, talks about how the violence, the initial violence is that of oppression. All other violence is a reaction to that root cause, that root oppression. Now, what is the root cause here? The root cause is the Israeli state being created, the modern Israeli state being created in 1948 at the expense of the indigenous Palestinians. What is the way forward? Let us talk about the way forward, and let us be inspired by the South African struggle. Perhaps, Ibn, perhaps, Ms. Khan, that a joint future for Palestinians and Israelis living together like us in South Africa live with our former oppressors is possible.
I think, firstly, I should say that the Popular Front, we do need to measure that they did congratulate the murder of the rabbis. We do need to just say that. But I do want to. Can we move on from that? I just did need to clarify that. But I do agree with Mohammed that we need to take the experience of South Africa and we need to share that with the Israelis and the Palestinians. And last year we had an amazing meeting with Mahmoud Abbas when he was in South Africa, the South African Jewish Board of Deputies. And these were the kind of issues that we spoke about, the need for negotiation, the need for the parties to come together, to understand each other's insecurities, to find ways that we can move forward. And that certainly is what we at the Jewish Board of Deputies are looking for. We don't believe that boycotts and punitive action and hosting terror, convicted hijackers is going to make any difference. All it does is polarize.
You mentioned now that we have to move forward.
Yes.
That's what you said.
So what I'm saying is, because we're here to discuss Leila Khalid coming here.
That's why I'm asking you, would you meet, if you want to move forward, would you meet with someone, as the Jewish Board of Deputies in South Africa, would you meet with Leila Khalid if there was an opportunity when she was here? If you are really honest about moving forward and building this dream, are you willing to do that?
I believe that somebody who consistently calls for violence is not somebody that can contribute to a solution in the Middle East.
Ms. Khan,
I think that we need to find...
Do you subscribe to international law?
Because all you do is you put people into corners.
Do you agree to international law?
Of course I agree with international law.
Do you know that under international law, all people are given the right, the human right, to take up armed struggle in defense of their self-determination? Are you aware of this?
Not by identifying civilians, innocent civilians, a 3-month-old baby to decapitate. That is a violation of international law.
I'm asking another question. I'm asking whether you agree with international law, A, and B, whether you agree with armed struggle being taken up by oppressed populations according to international
law. Not when it's targeting innocent civilians
that are not civilians. I said armed struggle.
Not when it's
unfortunately, that's where
civilians.
we have to leave it. It seems as if we are going to have some great difficulty moving forward here. If we are honest and if we are truthful to ourselves about peace, there comes a point where you have to look your enemy in the eye and you have to start a dialogue, even if you dislike what your enemy has done. Palestine and BDS have disliked what Israel has done, and so have the Jewish Board of Deputies.
I don't see them engaging with Israel. I don't see them opening their arms and wanting dialogue.
Ms. Khan, here's an invite.
There's an invite.
Here's an invite from BDS South Africa, a genuine and a deep invite. The Jewish Board of Deputies was on the wrong side of history during apartheid. You have the chance to be on the right side of history.
We're back to the race card. Whenever BDS gets a little bit anxious...
Okay, not everybody can have a last word. Thank you very much for joining us today, guys. Unfortunately, it seems as if this is a war that will be fought into eternity. It seems as we can't seem to forgive and move on in the name of Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela, all of our great leaders. If we don't have it in ourselves to forgive, if we seek retribution always, we will never go forward. And unfortunately, it seems as if this is a conflict that is stuck in reverse. But let's have a look at your tweet. Shahira Kalla says, As a Muslim woman, I stand strongly on the side of social justice and see Leila as a freedom fighter in every light. That one from Shaira Kalla. Retabil Nchinga says, makes no sense for Palestine to attack Israel knowing they can't match up with their military arms. Wendy was misleading. Wendy, they're having a go at you here on social media. E. Coaster says, I do not support BDS South Africa on Leila Khaled. I once admired her before I had this understanding of Quran and Ahadith. Now, who was Muhammad is the hashtag that he puts Muhammad aside. Well, let's take a look now at the tweet pic of the day today. Today's picture is from Katlego Khomo, showing one of the shops that is looted in Soweto, Snake Park to be exact. Of course, that story is developing right now. There's a lot of angry people gathering around the Snake Park area. We were hoping to cross there live within the next half an hour, 20 minutes, to give you an update as to what is going on. It is a serious problem, xenophobia, in South Africa, and it looks as if the powder keg is about to explode. But let's go elsewhere and have a look at the front pages from around the globe this morning. You'll see the Washington Post is looking at President Obama's State of the Union address, where he spoke about issues ranging from income inequality and tax reform to trade agreements and the Cuban embargo. Going down to Australia, is focusing on the same story. The Australian is saying Obama used his key speech to strengthen national and global resolve against the Islamic State. And the Jerusalem Post is reporting that a so-called Palestinian terrorist who stabbed 12 people aboard a crowded Tel Aviv bus has been arrested. Those are some of the international headlines that we're looking at right now. Of course, we had BDS and the Jewish Board of Deputies here in South Africa. They politely agree to disagree at the moment. Hopefully, we'll be able to find some middle ground, because we live on a planet that's in chaos. It seems as if violence begets more violence. It's the order of the day. Let's hope there is sanity. After all, it's all being done in the name of some God. Before we go to an ad break, let's just have a quick look at what's happening today. In Pretoria, apartheid-era chemical warfare expert Dr. Wouter Besson will be in the High Court again to remove the head of the HPCSA committee, sentencing him for unethical conduct. We stay in the capital, Pretoria. The High Court is also expected to rule on whether enforcing squatters for farm in Bloemfontein, Bultfontein, north of Pretoria, should be made permanent. Then in Melbourne, the third round of the Australian Open will get underway. Of course, lots of seeds have fallen by the wayside there. And in Equatorial Guinea, Zambia will take on Tunisia at 6 p.m. tonight in the African Cup of Nations, and Cape Verde will face the Congo at 9 p.m. This is Newsroom. We will be back shortly.
Zoom into Africa. This is the Kingdom of Swaziland. The leader is His Majesty King Mswati III. Swaziland got independent from Britain on 6 September in 1968. The population is more than 1 million people. One of the major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit is Lilangeni.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom now. President Jacob Zuma says the country is experiencing a minor setback but is en route to economic recovery. He was addressing delegates attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. The president urged business delegates to partner with government to help restore investor confidence in the economy.
President Jacob Zuma is one of 40 heads of state joining the 1,500 business leaders here. He met SABC MD Mark Baumann and Anglo-American Chief Executive Mark Curifani. Pretoria wants to assure investors of its plans to grow the economy.
That message to the companies and governments we are going to be interacting with here in Davos will be clear. That South Africa is open for business, and that we are a country at work, and that indeed South Africa is an important destination for investment. We are here in Davos to invite more development partners to join us in moving South Africa forward towards prosperity and a better life for all. And we offer many opportunities in return.
Inequality is a recurring theme at Davos. Oxfam has sounded alarm bells, penning a document warning that 1% of the world's rich will own more than half the global wealth by the end of next year.
In a situation where people are excluded and their children are not getting the opportunities to come out of poverty, you lock out millions and you create social strife, and that doesn't benefit even the profit seekers.
The widening gap between the rich and the poor has become a source of concern here. Civil society has warned that if nothing is done about it, this is a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Mzwandile Mbeje, SABC News, Davos, Switzerland.
Now, our man, Mzwandile Mbeje, he's with the President's delegation at the meeting in Davos, Switzerland. He joins us on the line right now. Hi there, Mzwandile, are you there?
Very good morning to you, Eben, and the viewers.
Mbeje, just tell us, how successful has South Africa's lobby been with regards to investment in spite of the challenges that the President have mentioned so far?
It's very interesting, Eben, if I can just indicate to you some of the important steps or measures South Africa is taking to assure investors that we may have difficulties, we may have challenges, but we're open for business as a country. I think the first port of call or the first order of business by the President, he met, as you have seen in the package, he met Mark Baumann, the MD of SABC. You know, SABC is one of the largest companies in the world. And then immediately after that, he met Anglo-American Mark Curifani. And of course, there were other people that he met behind closed doors to spread this message. But he didn't then end there. He also met Team South Africa to say, as a country, we may have our own differences, but the most important thing is that we all care about South Africa, we all care about the country. And then what message should we bring here to the people who are investors, to the people who will be able to help us solve the problems back home? One of the things, Eben, that you know is currently affecting South Africa is the issue of load shedding. And then President Zuma even announced that given the kind of crisis that we've been having, the country has also procured from the independent producers, I think about 4,000 megawatts of electricity, which really shows that the country is willing to put the interests of the country first, and then whatever differences are there, they must take a back seat, because at the end of the day, if the country goes down, everyone will go down. So that is the message I think President Zuma and his delegation have taken to Davos. And of course, people get the opportunity to ask about a whole lot of things. And then given that they are speaking the same language, I mean, you could see in that package, you have people from the banks, from the mines, from government, and they all are here and saying South Africa still has the good infrastructure for investment. South Africa still remains the gateway if you want to come to the continent. And you know, Asia and Africa are the two regions that are fastest growing. Obviously, if you want to come to Africa, so you've got to get to the gate where you know you'll be welcome, and then that is South Africa.
Mzwandile, you also talk in this package, you mentioned explicitly about the widening gap between the rich and the poor on the planet. Now, I've watched this conference or the council in Davos for the last decade and more, and every year we talk about the same thing, the widening gap between the rich and the poor, but nothing seems to happen, nothing's being done. Is there any sincerity when this is put on the table? It doesn't look like it.
You know, one of the most interesting things at this conference, Eben, is that report we're referring to, the Oxfam International Report. I can tell you that I wouldn't say it took everybody by surprise, but it became a huge talking point. They produced a report which says, you know, if the situation continues the way it is, by the end of next year, just 1% of the people will own more than half of what all of us own. And who are those people? Most of them are here in Davos. So they've been given the challenge to say, guys, you are here, and then if the situation continues, you are the only ones who actually will own almost everything. And you know what that means? There will be a time where people will say enough is enough. And then that's a recipe for disaster going forward. So you've got to do something. You've got to make sure that you redistribute wealth in a manner in which it also benefits ordinary people. So, you know, this inequality, I can tell you, I mean, the head of the Oxfam, she was the most sought after person after leaving that post, because everyone wanted to know, so the situation is this way. And interestingly, it's talking to the very same people who are here. So this issue of inequality is one of the very, very important, because they've been warned, people here, they've been warned to say, okay, it's fine, you are living well, but should it continue, disaster will strike. And when disaster strikes, it strikes everyone.
Thank you very much for that update, Mzwandile Mbeche, who is with the President's delegation in Davos, Switzerland. Yes, if it continues, it's a simple equation. The poor will eventually eat the rich. Anyhow, from an African perspective, concerns remain that while the continent may be growing, there's still a number of concerns like security and political instability, which are key goals needed to enable the country to be open for business. Now, joining us to specifically focus on growth in Africa is Teresa Lotter, Managing Director of Media Tenor SA, who is a leader in strategic media analysis. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning.
If I understand, Media Tenor will be launching the Africa Growth Report at the World Economic Forum. Just tell us about this report. What does it entail?
Well, basically, Eben, we analysed media coverage on all African countries because we are concerned that Africa is still suffering from a bad news syndrome. You know, and we're looking at ways of how can South Africa and Africa in general tell some good news stories for a change.
Now, you brought some stats. Let's have a look at some of it, Johan, and just talk us through some of this. We talk about African coverage, always negative. It's always about conflict, hunger.
And this year it was Boko Haram, Ebola, so it was even a worse year for Africa. The black line basically, Eben, is tonality, so not to get too complicated, the peaks mean positive and the rest is pretty much in the negative. You can see there negative 40%. That's the tone of coverage. The blue vertical bars indicate number of statements. So Nigeria actually gained the most prominence in terms of media coverage.
Media coverage, and that's mostly negative?
Yes, yes. Well, because of Boko Haram, that pulled down the tonality, but their investment and their growth strategy received a lot of coverage.
Tell us, what is the narrative around South Africa right now?
The narrative is twofold, actually. Government is pushing we are open for business. We have such good news stories to tell, but this is contrasted against our failing energy system. So we're battling actually to present a complete narrative.
To complete the argument, the positive argument, that is. I want to talk about Africa in general, and I want to talk about the outlook. Before we look at another graphic, just tell us about the African century that we're heading into. 6 of the fastest 10 growing economies on the planet right now are in Africa. The outlook should be good. Why is it then that in the media it still is negative?
Because I don't believe that Africa and African countries specifically are driving our own media agenda. We're relying on the rest of the world to tell our stories for us. And this came through very strongly with the Ebola crisis. It was actually, the Western world, specifically Europe and the US, that was leading the debate about Ebola. Where were our voices?
Absolutely, and that debate was mostly negative. When an American died, it became a global story.
Exactly.
Before that, 2,000 people died and not a word was said. Talk us to how this clouds Africa's progress.
You can see that the most prominent stories for Africa are domestic security, which relates to terrorism and Boko Haram, and then diseases, which is Ebola. So those are the two prominent stories. And then we've got sports and the personality of leaders, which is very negative. So sports at the moment is actually the only good news story about Africa.
Is that so?
Yes.
Seriously?
That's actually reaching the awareness threshold.
That's reaching the awareness thresholds. What about energy finds and oil off our coasts and about innovation in Africa, that sort of thing? Nothing?
Small scattered stories, but again, we're not pumping them enough, so they never reach above that threshold.
Now, which factors and countries are those that really build a country and then a continent, in this case, is reputation?
Yes, exactly. Reputation around competitiveness, and that's what we as a continent need to prove to the rest of the world, that's where we're aiming for.
And South Africa in particular?
Again, how can we tell the story that we're competitive if we don't have sustainable energy? I mean, that's what we need to solve. We need to convince the rest of the world that we have the situation in hand.
No, this is the final graph that you brought us. It talks about unstable media image for Africa, the average tonality and the like. Just explain to us how this works and what it's actually saying.
So it's the average tonality from 2007 to last year. And what's fascinating for me about this graph, Evan, is that you can see tonality around the continent peaked strongly around the World Cup and then slumped again. So that wasn't sustained. We didn't build on the gains made during the World Cup.
That's very sad to hear, actually.
Yes.
But it's very much there's very much negative sentiment within South Africa's own media, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
And is it a question that there's an agenda within our own media that pushes a negative agenda?
I don't think so much of it as an agenda. We're just trapped in the spiral of telling bad news stories. We need to break free of that pessimism and start being constructive.
How do we do this? How do we get the message across to editors, to executive producers and the like, to start spinning better stories?
Well, it's actually growing in other Western countries such as Denmark, that in the terms of constructive news, that we go back and follow up on stories. How have they resolved themselves? Can we find a positive angle? We need to start doing that.
If I was the president, I would put a 3-year jail term for a newspaper editor that's spinning negative stories about a country when it's not necessary.
Yes.
That's just a joke, though, Teresa. I would never do that. Thank
Sure.
you. Thank you very much for joining us today. That is Teresa Lotter, who's the Managing Director of Media Tenor South Africa. Let's have a quick look at your comments. Of course, it's worrying that the anger of South Africans has trickled down to born-frees. Foreigners who run these shops did nothing wrong, says Evans Matibe. We're talking about Soweto. Soweto has been on fire the last couple of hours. Hopefully we can still get there. Nyakayo says, where are these jobs that foreigners are apparently taking? No, they are not. Foreigners are coming to create in our economy. Stand up against xenophobia, says Brad. And then Alves says, why were there no politicians last night to try and sort this out? These are the tweets around what is happening in Soweto. Let's take a look at the tweet of the day. This one sent in by Temba, the Frog King, on xenophobia. He says, let me help you. A definition of xenophobia means intense or irrational dislike or fear of people from other countries. Yes, that fear is very much being built around the resources of the country. And let's be honest, people that come to our shores, they don't hold a threat to our resources. They don't keep us out of jobs. They add to our economy. So, unfortunately, it's the case all over the world. Whenever the economy takes a dip, the first ones to bear the brunt of the anger are those that are either visiting our shores or that are living as refugees within those countries. You're watching Newsroom. Let's take a short break.
people, we are getting there. And thanks to you, Pati is set to become our country's 12th official language. Here's today's word. Substitute. Replacing a drinking buddy with somebody more fun.
That has gone out of the ballpark.
That's more like it.
Help make Pati South Africa's 12th official language. Sign the petition today.
I've got a credit card.
Well, hello and welcome back. You're with Newsroom on SABC News. Let's just take a look at the top stories this morning. The number of people arrested in connection with widespread looting in Soweto has risen to 68. This follows the looting of spaza shops belonging to foreign nationals. Parts of Soweto have been up in arms since the shooting of a teenager at Snake Park on Monday. 4 foreign nationals will appear in the Protea Magistrates Court this morning on gun charges. They were arrested after shooting at people who were looting their spaza shops in Snake Park, Soweto. President Jacob Zuma has urged business delegates to partner with government to help restore investor confidence in South Africa's economy. This while addressing South African delegates attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Zuma told delegates the country remains stable and a key investment hub despite the faltering economy and energy shortage. And then as voting in Zambia's presidential by-election continues, concerns are now that administrative delays could disrupt plans to have all results in by today and ahead of tomorrow's scheduled inauguration. Voting in Zambia's presidential by-election continues into its 3rd day today after bad weather prevented the timely delivery of voting materials. The country's electoral commission says about half a dozen polling stations in remote areas opened this morning in what is expected to be the last day of polling. The commission has suspended the announcement of results until all voting ends. I remember all those top stories and more are all available on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can then also keep up to date on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, back to you.
Thank you very much, Katrina. The South African Broadcasting Corporation's Foundation will today hand over computers that the SABC used during the week-long funeral of former President Nelson Mandela. The equipment will be donated to the community of Kunu at the Nelson Mandela Museum Complex to be used for adult education. Now, our reporter, Zimkita Makingwan, is attending the function and joins us live from Kunu. A very good morning to you, Zimkita.
A very good morning and welcome to Kunu. We're coming to you live from Kunu Youth and Heritage Center here at the birthplace of Dr. Nelson Mandela. This is where he spent most of his life and people here are happy. They're excited that 20 computers are being handed over by the SABC Foundation for the benefit of adults who will be learning computer literacy for the very first time. But to speak to us is the friend of the museum, Dr. Mgomezulu. Good morning, Dr. Mgomezulu.
Good morning.
Just tell us, what does it mean for the museum to have these computers that are going to be utilized by adults here?
To be honest, I must say that I'm over the moon. I'm thrilled about this donation because in my view, it epitomizes what the late Nelson Mandela stood for, which is keeping in touch with the community, capacitating them, and then, of course, making sure that you put them first instead of putting your own intentions up front.
I know the main focus are the adults that will be touching these computers for the very first time in their lives. But do you have any plans for youth to benefit from these computers as well?
Absolutely. The Nelson Mandela Museum has an overall structure of of ensuring that not only the youth benefit, but the allied community as well. So in this case, the youth will benefit in the sense that during the winter school, they will have access to the computers where they will be doing research, surfing the internet, and then doing all that they are supposed to do as the youth. So it will benefit the youth as much as it benefits the adult.
Thank you very much for your time. That is Dr. Mgomezulu, who's telling us that they're very happy that they're having these computers here. But now let's speak to the beneficiaries and see how they feel. Yesterday was their first day to be in this class, to actually be taken around to see the computers. And today they'll start with their last lessons. Good morning, Mama. Kasixelele uba niziva njani nina nine-computers namhlanje?
Molo sisi. Enkosi sisi ndiyabulela. Yo sisiva sivuyile kakhulu ngalento ezi-computers. Ezi-computers zizawusinceda kakhulu kuba kaloku apha esikolweni asinayo indawo esigcina kuyo information yesikolo. Ngoku sakuthanda i-information ngosigcine apha kwi-computers ihlale i-safe phaa xa uyifuna uphinde uyinantsike ekhompyutheni. Zizawusinceda nalapha ekuprinteni ezi CVs zethu nabantwana bethu ne-learners zethu siprinte apha ii-CVs zabo. Enye into ezasinceda kuyo lento ezi-computers asinayo kaloku imali edolophini kukude. Ngoku ke sizawuba kufutshane sizavele sisuke size apha emuseum sizokwenza yonke into yethu ifuna ukuyenza apha ezikhompyutheni.
Akhona amaqhosha selwazi apho uba lena yintoni lena yintoni?
Akhona amaqhosha selwazi sisi yimouse lena.
Okay.
Ewe. Nasi ne-control key ndiyayibona, nasi ne-keyboard ndiyayibona nayo. Noko zikhona into esendizibona nazi i-alphabets ndiyazibona futhi azi-arranjwanga alphabetical. U-Q nankuya, u-O nankuya, so funeka ube careful.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. That's one of the learners who will be having access to this computer. Surely they learned something yesterday because she's telling me around the keyboard what she knows already. They're very excited here, the SABC Foundation, so it fits that they get these computers to ensure that they continue the legacy of Baba Nelson Mandela. That's all we have time for here. It's back to you in Johannesburg. But now let's have the group dancing for us.
We are the Mandela. We are the Mandela. We are the Mandela. We are the Mandela. Utabakala Baba Funde. Utabakala Baba Funde. Utabakala Baba Funde.
What a lovely crossing there from Zimkita. Absolute beautiful story. SABC Foundation. Yeah, we're trying to do a bit, use the facilities. I like the bit about the keyboard. Lady says it doesn't work alphabetically. It's different. It's nice. I love it. Finally, agriculture and food security in South Africa will receive a major boost today with the reopening of an agricultural college. Eastern Cape Rural Development and Agrarian Reform MEC Mlibo Koboshiane, together with Premier Pumulo Maswale, Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries Minister Zenzeni Zokwana, and Rural Development and Land Reform Deputy Minister Mcebisi Skwacha will officially open Cholo Agriculture and Rural Development Institute in Tsolo today. The college will offer a course in agriculture, starting with a 3-year diploma academic program covering fields like dipping, castrating of livestock as well. A 20 million rand veterinary clinic donated by the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries will also be handed over. Now, reporter Unati Bingose joins us from Tsolo in the Eastern Cape. Very good morning to you, Unati. Just put us in the picture.
A very good morning to you, Eben, and a warm welcome to Tsolo. We are here for the opening of the Tsolo Agricultural and Rural Development Institute. This is a school that has had its ups and downs, and we believe that with the help of government, it will be able to stay up and offer the services that it is meant to offer in this area. This is an institution that specializes in everything that is agriculture, and this is an industry that has been considered widely unfashionable, and over the years it has managed to find its way back into the mainstream, and thus attracting a lot of young people. However, to speak more about this, we're now joined by the MEC for Rural Development in the province, Mr. Mlibo Koboshiane. So a very good morning to you and a warm welcome to AM News. Tell me, how did this come about?
Because we have decided to take a decision that we must reopen Tsolo Rural Development Institute to constitute part of the colleges of the province of the Eastern Cape to offer animal health diploma 3 years for students who are coming from disadvantaged areas and rural villages of the province of the Eastern Cape. And I think today I can confirm that we are reopening this institution with everything that is required.
understand that when it comes to institutions like this, having qualified teachers and willing students is not just enough. You need to have equipment, you need to have livestock and everything else. Have we got that?
Indeed, we are almost ready. We do have livestock on site. We do have programs that are going to run concurrently when the theory is being conducted in class, inside classrooms. We are going to have practice in the field. There is fertile land for livestock. There is also an agricultural practice centers that are going to be here. We've got equipment, state-of-the-art laboratories. We are going to construct a veterinary clinic inside here. And all of that is trying to say this learner, after 3 years, is well equipped, can master the art of ensuring that they are in charge of this huge industry and agri-sector in the province of the Eastern Cape.
This is good, not only for the province's economy and the country's economy, I understand, for food security as well.
Indeed. We are going, we have taken a decision to have 300,000 hectares to be tilled in the province of the Eastern Cape. We've got 3.3 million cattle head population in this province. We've got sheep, goats, horses and cats and so on. The castrations, the vaccinations and the whole content and the subject choices of learners. That's why we've decided to call upon even learners to come for career choice and pathing in this particular program. To us, it is quite critical that we ensure that there is sustainability of rural livelihoods, there is continuity of the programs. We are looking to introduce and offer a new diploma, for instance, in the next coming few years. But we want to be an anchor of animal health because of the production of such in the province and in the region like this eastern side of the Eastern Cape province.
Before I let you go, on the other side of the province, we've got Fort Cox College here, yes. And I'm told that they have more students than they can accommodate.
I totally agree. 350 currently, having enrolled 80 as I'm speaking with you. There is a new invigoration and there is new demand of this particular science, of this particular knowledge called agriculture and rural development, which was never there before. Now, what we're supposed to do as a cabinet of the Eastern Cape is to invest, because this is only the mine that we can mine. This is the only goal that we have. And I think when we're speaking about veterinarians that we want to have in the next coming few years, we have taken learners, for instance, to Pretoria University. Soil scientists that we are now funding 100% as the department is an assurance that we need a province that is not only growing economically but through its own human resource capital. We are also building that solidly. And Fort Cox is but one that is dealing with issues of forestry, cropping as well as livestock, and is going to be complemented by the production of learners from this institution. And indeed, some universities that we are going to have program with, like Forte, like University of Port Elizabeth or Nelson Mandela, we are going to be partners in order to target what we want to see in the next coming 10 years.
So let's thank you very much for your time. As we allow you to go, let's welcome now the principal of the institution. Will you please step forward, please? All right, thank you very much. Let's allow you to leave.
Well, unfortunately, we have to cut away. We've run out of time there. Looks like they're working very hard in the Eastern Cape today. 2 lovely crossings there. The second one, just as important as the first, I think. Farming is the lifeblood on the African continent, and we really need to invest our education system in that. But that's where we have to wrap it today. Katrina, you're going to wish me a happy birthday.
Very happy birthday.
Thank you.
Day.
Thank you
so much. Mwah.
Thank you very much.
And then from the entire team here at Newsroom as well, we're wishing you a very happy birthday today. And
thank you. I work with the very best team in television. There's my viewer pick of the day.
Beautiful picture of you.
Well, I must say, that picture was at a couple of years ago at Madame Zingara, and by that time we've had a lot to drink, so that's probably why I'm a bit shiny there in that picture. But thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Love your work. Love this team. We've done very well in a very short space of time. But that's where we leave you today. Newsroom is broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. We also, of course, repeat the show at 2 in the afternoon. That is me dancing. Come on, guys, man. Rebroadcast 5 a.m. the next morning. We also live on YouTube. The time in the morning. Okay, anyhow.
That's how Evan's dancing on the show, showing you that we all love it in the morning.
Love you. Thank you, guys.